Hi, I'm Michelle Ferguson and I'm the crochet pattern designer of Two Brothers Blankets. Today I'm going to be presenting on crocheting garments for men. Okay, let's chat about how to crochet beautiful garments for men and boys. Crocheting garments for men is similar to crocheting any garments, whether you've made a garment for yourself or someone else, but there are some key differences that can level up your men's garments and have them looking amazing. Knowing how to measure, how to choose the right size, how to make adjustments when needed is going to help you so much, and it's going to give you a great fitting and a great looking garment for men. Choosing the right yarn for the project you are making can take your garment from uncomfortable to so comfortable and cozy. Today I'm going to share my best tips and tricks for crocheting garments for men. All right, so let's start with a little bit about me and why I know so much about crocheting garments for men. So I'm Michelle. I'm the owner and designer of Two Brothers Blankets, and I've been designing crochet patterns since 2014. I've been doing women's garments almost that entire time. I do accessories, things like that. But as a wife and as a boy mom, I have two boys, I realized that there just weren't enough crochet patterns for men and boys out there. Yes, there were some, but a lot of them were outdated, just not very modern, and not very stylish. So I set out to change that. In 2023, I published my very first pattern book, Crochet Makes for Men. It features modern and masculine crochet patterns for the guys. There are 6 crochet garments in the book, and I learned so much while designing, crocheting, and making these patterns. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is determining size. So most designers will use the Craft Yarn Council standards for body size. There you can find size charts for both men and women and even children. The men's sizes include small through 5X, so all the measurements for small through 5X. When measuring to determine size, you're going to need a soft measuring tape. You want to hold the tape taut around the body, but not too tight. Don't squeeze it tight because you won't get a very accurate fit or measurement. It's best to take measurements and choose the sizing using the measurements rather than just going off the size the person typically wears. My husband wears a medium, typically, sometimes a large, but when I'm making him sweaters, I pretty much always make him a large. So you're going to want to go off of those measurements and not just, oh, they wear a large. All right, this next part might be the most important part and the most important thing you need to know about crocheting garments for men. It is the key difference in sizing for men versus sizing for women. The main difference is in choosing the right size for men is their shoulder to shoulder measurement. So for a woman's garment, you'll most likely see a bust circumference. Children's garments, you'll see chest circumference, and you'll see that as well in men's patterns, but you're also going to want to go with the shoulder to shoulder measurement for men. Men typically have broad shoulders. Their shoulders are usually quite wide, especially in comparison to women's. So you're definitely going to want to take that measurement into account. If the circumference of their shoulders is larger than their chest circumference, and you go off the chest circumference to choose the size, you most likely won't get as good or as comfortable of a fit. The garment may not even fit at all. So when I first got into crocheting garments for men and I was crocheting sweaters for my husband, I would go off his chest circumference, and then he would put it on and it would be super tight in the shoulder and the upper area and just look uncomfortable, and it just didn't look like it fit well. So I kind of had an aha moment, and I was like, wait, his shoulders are broad. His shoulders are so, so much wider than the rest of him. I need to go off of that measurement. So I took his shoulder to shoulder measurements, and I used this formula to determine what size I needed to make. So I would take the shoulder to shoulder measurement, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. And then I'm also going to take the chest circumference measurement. If the shoulder to shoulder measurement times 2 is larger than the chest circumference, you're going to want to use the shoulder to shoulder to determine size. So let's give an example. My husband's chest circumference is 35 inches. His shoulder to shoulder measurement is 18 inches. So 18 times 2 equals 36, meaning his shoulder circumference is larger and he will need to go with a size large. So after trial and error, we have found that large fits and looks the best on him. It's most comfortable, and it just looks really nice on him. There's some pictures of him in these garments on here. You can see some on my website or in my Ravelry shop as well. They look like they fit perfect. So we've determined that we definitely have to go up a size to accommodate for his broader shoulders. This also applies to children's sizes, especially in boys. I find from about 10, 11 years old, you'll find that you need to consider shoulder to shoulder measurements. My son is 12, my youngest, and he is already, I've got to go off of those shoulder to shoulder measurements. His shoulders are already starting to broaden and get wider as he grows and becomes a teenager. And so I have to use those measurements and size him up so that it will fit well. Some other factors that could influence this include the ease of the garment. So if it's very oversized, you may not have to go up a size. And the weight of the yarn. So worsted or bulky weight yarn will usually give you like more room, a different fit almost than thinner yarn such as sport or fingering. For worsted weight, I have a few worsted weight garment patterns for men. For those, I can size down into a medium for him. He can usually wear a medium if it's worsted or bulky, but anything thinner, I make a large for him. Okay, so here is a visual of taking the shoulder to shoulder measurement. You're going to measure the tip of the shoulder bone to the tip of the shoulder bone across the top. Make sure it's tight, but not too tight. Right from edge to edge, edge of the shoulder to the next edge of the shoulder. And that's going to give you the most accurate measurement, and that's how I take the shoulder to shoulder measurement. Okay, let's talk about choosing yarn. So I always recommend using the same yarn that the pattern calls for, if possible. But I know that's not always possible, or you may just want to use yarn from your stash. So I always say at least use the same weight yarn as the pattern calls for. A great resource to find yarn substitutions is yarnsub.com. You put in the yarn that the pattern calls for, and it will give you other ideas for yarn that is very similar that you can use. I would also say consult with the person you are making the garment for if you're making it for someone else. If you're making it for yourself, then you just consult with yourself. If the yarn, but if not, you're going to want to consult with them. So you need to see if maybe the yarn is soft enough against their skin, if it's comfortable for them. Do they like the drape of the fabric? Do they like the colors? Let them pick the colors maybe. Stuff like that. I always recommend working up a gauge swatch, and if you plan to block the garment, block the gauge swatch as well to see how the yarn is affected by the blocking. This also gives you a way to show them the drape of the fabric that the stitches create, stuff like that. It's always good to have a gauge swatch. And then take into consideration washing instructions. Will the person be able to wash it themselves? If it's somebody that lives with you, are you going to be able to wash it and block it if it needs it, stuff like that. Take that swatch that you made, or make a few swatches, and throw it in the washing machine if it's machine washable. See how it holds up. See if it will keep its shape. Stuff like that. I would definitely experiment with washing instructions, and if you need something, if it's going to another state to somebody, and you know that they're not going to know what the heck to do with it, they'll probably just throw it in the wash. You're going to want to find a yarn that can handle that. So definitely take into consideration your washing instructions. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is making adjustments. So the best thing you can do when making a garment for yourself or for someone else is be prepared to make adjustments. As designers, we have a size chart. We're given standard sizes, but we all know that we are not all one size fits all. We are shaped different. we're different heights, everything. There's so many different factors that come in when crocheting a garment. So when you can adjust, you're going to ensure that the garment fits well and feels good when being worn. If possible, try the garment on the person often as you're working on it. That is very helpful. So when you get to, like if you're working bottom up, get bottom panel done, try it on, make sure it goes up far enough, and then you get to top, make sure it fits the shoulders okay and everything, and then the sleeves, make sure the length is good. Just try on the different sections of the crocheting process so that you can see that things are fitting or make adjustments if you need to. If you're unable to try it on, make sure you take plenty of measurements. So you're going to take your regular, chest circumference and shoulder to shoulder, but also arm length, arm circumference, back length, so you know how long to make the garment. You can compare it to something that they wear maybe, if that's a good length that they want, you're going to want to get that measurement, and just have those written down handy for when you're making it so that you can make it the right lengths that it needs to be. So some ways you can adjust. Let's see. Length we have usually can be adjusted by adding or subtracting the number of rows or rounds in the body of the sweater and the sleeves. So if you need something longer, you would add more rows or rounds depending on how you're making it. If you need something shorter, you would do less. Same with the sleeves. I have short arms, so I seem to always have to shorten my sleeves a little bit. So I do less rounds of the sleeves if I'm working in the round, stuff like that. That's a pretty easy adjustment. For width can be a little more complicated. There's math involved sometimes, and none of us really want to do that math, do we now? So if you need just a little extra width, so I'm more of a pear shaped, and I usually have to make adjustments in the hips, add a little room in the hip area if I need to, if I'm making something that comes down past my hips. So one way you can do that is to go up a hook size or two, and that just kind of loosens up your stitches just a little to give you a little more room. And if you need less room, you do the same thing. You go down a hook size, maybe to just tighten that up a little bit so you don't have as much room. Also, if the person is in between sizes, I always recommend going up a size for a more comfortable fit. I always feel like it just fits better even if it's a little bit bigger than the other way. Tighter, I don't particularly care for tighter, and I think most people don't. If you want tighter, or if they're really close to the smaller size, you could go with the smaller size, but I always usually just recommend going up a size if you're right in the middle. So yeah, knowing how to make those adjustments, being able to try it on, or having those important measurements so that you can make the adjustments are huge when crocheting a garment for anybody, but men as well as women, any kind of garment. Being able to make those adjustments, knowing how to make those adjustments are key into fitting that person specifically, getting the garment to fit that person specifically. All right, and lastly, I just have some more resources for you to check out. I have a lot of information about crocheting garments, making those adjustments I talked about, ease, stuff like that on my YouTube channel and on social media. You can search Two Brothers Blankets on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram to find me, and you'll be able to see some of that information. I also linked the Craft Yarn Council body sizing page for you. This is where you can find the size charts for men, women, children. I think they even have babies and head circumference size charts, stuff like that. All kinds of different, and like how to adjust length if you want like the garment to come to hip length, or if you want it to be like a tunic, and for men what that kind of adjustment is. It has all kinds of information, so I linked that as well. And you can grab my book Crochet Makes for Men with the men's garments in it on Amazon, or you can go to menscrochetpatterns.com to get the ebook or other ways to grab the book. So I hope that is helpful. Thank you so much for letting me be here to talk about crocheting garments for men. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at twobrothersblankets@gmail.com. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.